Hey Space Cadets, I'm Ziggy, founder and owner of Ziggy Astrology. I'm a registered nurse and medical astrologer, and I'm on a mission to get narrow minds to believe astrology is real. Hey sweet cheeks, I'm Ziggy. You already knew that. Technically my real name is Francine, but most of you know me as Ziggy, and there's a reason for that. It was not random, it was not a rebrand, it was actually a grief ritual. Ziggy was the nickname that my mentor gave me, my astrology mentor. He used to call me that, not for David Bowie, though I wouldn't complain, but because of syzygies. If you don't know what that is, don't worry. It's an astronomy term, or an astrology term, whatever you want to categorize it as. A syzygy is when three celestial bodies align, like the Earth, Moon, and Sun during a new moon or eclipse. Three bodies, one straight line, something rare, something powerful. Actually, a syzygy happens every 14.5 days technically, but the rarer one is the eclipse. Anyway, he said that's how my brain worked and how I thought, because I was always looking for alignments, for connections, for moments of clarity and chaos. In utmost chaotic times, I was always maladapting. So it was kind of toxic, but very real, and so true. He passed away just over a year ago. And I completely unraveled, basically. I changed my TikTok handle to Ziggy one night because I couldn't stop thinking about him. And it was meant to be temporary, but it stuck, and now it's who I am. It's my brand. Ziggy Astrology. So if you've ever wondered why I go by Ziggy, that's why. That's where it started. And now I'm here, recording this, finally, because apparently enough of you asked for it. Hi! Here we are. Let's get something straight right now. If you're coming into this with some astrology under your belt, I love that. I absolutely adore that, actually. But you need to know that not everything I say is going to match what you've learned, and that is totally okay. Astrology is not a monolith, babe. It's not a closed system. It's a language. It's a philosophy. It's a craft. They're sidereal, tropical, draconic, heliocentric, Vedic, Western, modern, traditional. And some people use whole sign houses. Other people use Placidus. Other people use Koch. Some people use Aries at 0 degrees on the ascendant. So on and so forth. There's Hellenistic, medieval, psychological, archetypal, evolutionary. And every one of those methods can be valid if you've honed your techniques, did some research, and know how to use it. Technique matters. Interpretation matters. But most of all, in my opinion, humility matters. And I'm not your enemy. I'm not here to argue about house cusps or who's using the real zodiac, because I'm your colleague, okay? Or maybe I'm your chart-obsessed cousin who never shut the fuck up at family dinners. Hi, Roman. Hi, Jan. Hi, Annette. If you're tuning in, hope you are. Thanks for supporting me. Either way, I'm not here to win. I'm really not. I'm here to reclaim something that's been dragged through the mud, because astrology is not a meme, and it's not a hustle, and it's not a hot take. It's quite literally a system. It's a map. It's a relationship. And for me, it's my life, okay? I've been doing this for over a decade. Like, I used to skip class to read birth charts. I scared the shit out of my teacher once because I read her Saturn return in 8th grade. She was 59 years old and going through her second Saturn return. This isn't a trend for me. It's not. This is how I survived. And I'm putting myself on this mic because, honestly, the profession needs it. Because you and I, if you're serious about this work, we actually have a shared opponent. And not an enemy. Just like a fucking parasite. Like a cultural fungus. A low-effort, high-volume mosquito buzz that refuses to die. It's the guy, you know, the one who, he's like, oh my god, I just saw this meme. And it said that Geminis never shut the fuck up. Such bullshit. Yeah. He completely debunked 5,000 years of human history. He never read a single book, but he's got opinions. He drives a Civic and he says females, unironically. And let's talk about the girl too. The random 25-year-old girl boss. She decided to wake up on a random Wednesday and said, I'm an astrologer now. She made 3 TikToks about why Scorpios are hot but toxic, told everyone their Venus sign controls their hair texture, and now she charges $500 for a 60-minute chart reading, where she will tell you to cut off your ex and drink rose quartz water that was charged under the full moon. This is the astrology that the world sees, guys. And that's a big problem because when astrology gets flattened into a dating meme or a Canva graphic with Cancer equals crybaby, people tend to forget that this practice used to be taken extremely seriously. It was very serious. It was literally part of the original medical curriculum in Europe, guys. You couldn't get your degree without knowing what planet ruled the gallbladder. And now it's, what type of bread are you based on your moon sign? Swipe through and find out. Based on my Scorpio moon, I'm definitely sourdough, but I digress. Anyway, when skeptics come in and say, astrology isn't real, it just says generic things anybody can relate to, they're not actually criticizing astrology. You should not be offended. They're criticizing the bastardized version of astrology that got shoved into newspapers in the 1930s to sell Princess Margaret's horoscope. And then by 1960, every freaking newspaper ever had a little horoscope column because people were feral about it. They were obsessed. It was entertaining. Because the Cold War was cold, men were trash, and women were lonely and bored. They needed something to have feeling. They needed to reclaim their identity, and they used astrology to do it. And these idiots are criticizing the BuzzFeed quiz of a system that's essentially been filtered down through decades of gendered media and meme culture. And they're not wrong to laugh. They're stupid, though. They don't know what they're laughing at. That's why I'm here. Sorry, not sorry. It's stupid. Because astrology is older than Jesus Christ, but we'll get to that later. This podcast isn't about proving that astrology works, because that is obvious. And if you don't think it's obvious, keep listening and it will be made obvious. But this podcast, to me, like, my goal is to show what it actually is. Like, I'm going to be talking honestly and sometimes angrily. I have an 8th house Aquarius stellium. I need to express it. I can't help myself, okay? I'm going to be expressing myself angrily sometimes about how astrology got feminized and commercialized and dumbed down and then dismissed because it became accessible. So I want to reclaim the system for everybody who uses it, especially when they use it with intention and care. And I also want to call out the people who sell it like snake oil and then trash it like it's useless in the same breath. We all know someone. I definitely do. Astrology's not fake. It has been handled extremely poorly by girlboss grifters, by lazy skeptics, by spiritual bypassers, by content creators who've never opened a fucking ephemeris in their life and don't even know what it is. Fuck all of you. You and me, we're different. We care. This is Fuck Your Star Sign, and we're here to take astrology back, babe. Let's get started. Okay, so we have records of astrology going back to 3000 BCE in Mesopotamia. That's 5,000 years. Babylonians were tracking planetary movements and correlating it with real-world events, guys. Famine, war, flooding, royal births, death, even leeching someone. Like, it wasn't just vibes, it was data. Cold, hard, objective data. There was nothing subjective about it until it became more psychology focused, but that was later. Kings had court astrologers. Whole empires were run on celestial patterns. And then by the Hellenistic period, like 1st century BCE, astrology had become a full system. Like, it developed alongside astronomy and mathematics. And it was taken seriously, and it was studied, and it was taught. And in medieval Europe, astrology was part of the medical curriculum. If you wanted to be a doctor, you had to study astromedicine. And if you couldn't read a chart, congratulations, you're not a doctor. You're a peasant now. Here's your plow. Enjoy your peasant life. Toodaloo, fuck right off. I'm not kidding, that's how it happened. That's what went down. Even the icons of science, they were in on it. Galileo, he cast horoscopes. He taught astrology to med students. He was found vehemently suspect of heresy by the Roman Inquisition, and he was sentenced to house arrest for defending the heliocentric theory. He was literally formally banned and banished by the Roman Catholic Church for teaching and defending the opinion that the Earth orbits the sun. And guess the fuck what? He was right. We have Kepler, the guy who literally wrote the laws of planetary motion, also a professional astrologer. And he also has this big ass telescope floating through space right now named after him that was designed to search for planets outside of our solar system, our exoplanets. And it's currently being used to quantify their abundance in the Milky Way. He was an astrologer. NASA named a telescope after an astrologer. Guys, he once said, Kepler, and I quote, "A most unfailing experience of the excitement of sublunary nature by the conjunctions and aspects of the planets." That's 1600s for, the planets affect us, I'm not here to argue about it. I'm not here to argue at all. In fact, the shit kind of slaps. That's the translation. So again, astrology was respected by academics, by scientists, by entire civilizations. And then we fast forward to the 17th and 18th centuries, the scientific revolution, and Age of Reason. And this is where everything symbolic got kicked out of the house entirely. Science got extremely mechanical. And then we had people like Descartes and Newton trying to redefine the universe as a giant machine, this cold rock factory, like clockwork, basically. And if you couldn't observe it or measure it or isolate it, it did not count. Because astrology was based on the macrocosm microcosm principle, as above, so below. That didn't survive that worldview, not at all. And it wasn't material enough for them. So they pushed it aside. They called it superstition, they called it irrational, and they called it outdated. And to spice things up even more, and put the cherry on top of the shit parade, the church decided they didn't like it either and threw it away also. Because the idea that your fate could be written in the stars, it sounded a little bit too deterministic for them. A little bit too, you don't need God. Like the idea of Mercury retrograde trining your sun and something happening because of that, blasphemy! So yeah, religion said no, science said no, and astrology got shoved out of the intellectual canon. Just to be clear, I am not this fatalistic determinist. I don't think that fate is real. I believe that we have free will because of quantum physics, which I will speak about another time, but I just wanted to interject and let you guys know that that is not something that I want to paint astrology as, okay? So once astrology left the elite male spaces and it started to show up in women's circles and working class communities and even queer spaces, people who weren't given access to academic institutions started using it a lot, like for guidance, for reflection, for spiritual connection. And the second that happened, society labeled it as silly. Astrology became a girly thing. And in this culture, that's code for stupid, you know? There's literally a term for this too. It's called the feminization of astrology. If a poor person or a woman does it or believes in it, then it must be bullshit. The typical patriarchal opinion, you know what I mean? And what irritates me even more is the fact that it wasn't subtle. Because by the 20th century, astrology had quite literally moved from observatories to Cosmopolitan magazine. In 1930, the UK's Sunday Express, I believe it was called, they ran a horoscope for baby Princess Margaret. People went feral for it. And then boom, modern horoscopes were born. And then instead of real chart interpretations, the public got these 12 sun sign blurbs. And it was quick, it was digestible, mass produced. It was astrology fast food, essentially, like the McDonald's of astrology. No hate on McDonald's, because I love me a quarter pounder. Anyway, that shit spread like wildfire. And then by the 1960s, just 30 years later, or even less, I believe, like 1958-ish, horoscopes were everywhere. 17, Glamour, Good Housekeeping, Esquire tried it, branded it as intellectual astrology for men, and then it flopped, and the male readers hated it, and then they pulled the plug. What else did you expect? Yeah, the cultural verdict was sealed, essentially, because astrology equals girly equals dumb, which sucks. Super patriarchal. Never mind that it was girly, by the way. Like, that was one of the only socially sanctioned ways for women to explore spirituality and emotion and timing and identity. And never mind the fact that marginalized people used astrology because traditional religion had nothing to offer them. Because, once astrology became popular with non-men, it became safe to laugh at it. That is literally the bane of our existence, ladies. Like, just generally speaking, feminizing something and then it becomes delegitimized. Like, that sucks. And this is coming from a full-blown moderate, 8th house Aquarius stellium, Jupiter, Mars, Pallas, Uranus, and the Sun. Sun at 0 degrees, Uranus at 8. I forgot where Pallas is. Mars and Jupiter are basically having sexual intercourse at 26 degrees. Yeah, so I try to be as objective as possible. I want you to know this. And the only reason I'm sharing it is because you need to know who is deciphering everything for you here, because there is a lot of conflicting information. So if you can take me seriously, based on the mere fact that I take a topic, any given topic, rip it apart, and then make a decision, if you could take me seriously based on the fact that my Virgo North Node goes balls deep into any topic before coming to a conclusion, that's what I like. I want you to know this for that reason, and that reason only. Anyway, let's keep going. We're almost done with the boring history, I promise. And if you're enjoying this, I fucking love you. I hope most of you will enjoy this because it's important to cover our bases before we dive into the actual astrology, okay? Anyway, astrology ends up surviving sexism and classism and the Enlightenment period, yada, yada, yada. And then we reach the final boss that flattens it entirely. Social media. Like, how can anybody take astrology seriously when they've never been exposed to it before and all they're seeing are very vague horoscopes on meme accounts or on apps, which I'm not going to name the names of because I don't know who this podcast is going to get the attention of. And I believe that there's a propensity for someone as polarizing as me to, grab the attention of very scary people who are not going to hesitate to initiate a lawsuit, so I'm not going to talk about that. You already know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I'm not mad about the fact that social media fucked astrology up. I just feel like we need to be honest about what came with it, because astrology turned into branding and stereotypes and viral jokes. Scorpios are toxic, Geminis talk too much, Mercury retrograde made me cheat. Here's your pizza topping based on your sun sign. Like, suddenly the version of astrology most people know is just vibe science. And it's like cliches dressed up as what we know as cosmic insight, whatever the fuck. And you know what happens naturally when skeptics see that shit? Of course they're going to roll their eyes because they think that that's astrology, and that's not astrology, that's just content. It's marketing. Like, here is your freaking, I don't know, like your favorite color based on your rising sign. And, oh, this is cool. Let me get a reading with them. That's like the whole like mechanism of action behind posting astrology content that resonates with everyone like that, When they get general with it, more people flock. They don't know what they're really looking at or what astrology truly is. And they can't use their discernment because you can only discern so much. You can only discern using facts you have in your head. So if you don't know anything about astrology, obviously you're going to flock to this shit and you're going to purchase something. It's marketing. It's sun sign astrology stripped of all complexity, essentially. And then we wonder why scientists call it pseudoscience. They're not even wrong, if that's what you're testing. But this is about correlation, not causation. And this brings me to my next point, my friends. When people tell me astrology isn't real because there's no scientific evidence, or astrology doesn't work like Newtonian physics, therefore it just must be fake. To that I respond, trauma patterns don't behave like Newtonian physics. Consciousness doesn't behave like Newtonian physics. Dreams don't behave like Newtonian physics. Intuition doesn't behave like Newtonian physics. Love doesn't behave like Newtonian physics. Let's stop acting like if it can't be shoved into a fucking lab test or dissected under a microscope that it doesn't matter. Because astrology doesn't claim to be a physical force. It's not saying planets are beaming down signals like space Wi-Fi or like puppets, like fucking puppet masters. Mars is, it entered Aries and it's gonna be, making you go rob a bank, yeah. No. It's a non-causal, symbolic, correlative system. And if that sounds complicated, allow me to explain it in plain language for you. Carl Jung, founder of analytical psychology. He's the reason shadow work is even a thing. He used astrology in his clinical practice, and he quite literally wrote, whatever is born or done at a particular moment of time has the quality of that moment. And he saw astrology as a language of archetypes and psychological energies. It moved through people and history in a meaningful coincidence with planetary alignments. And it wasn't because the planets cause events, it was because they mirror them. That's called synchronicity. It's not a superstition. It's interconnectedness. It's timing. It's a pattern. It's symbolic, right? Honestly, it explains life better than most things. Like, you can't say time is fake because we invented a clock to measure it, right? When we exclude the special circumstances like Antarctica and the Arctic Circle, right? If you're living in, I don't know, freaking Florida and it's 2 p.m., it's going to be light outside. If you look at the clock and it says 2 p.m., you're going to expect for it to be light out. Duh, right? If it's 8 p.m., it's either, depending on which season we're in, it's either, sun is setting or it's already dark outside, right? It just is what it is. It's just a measurement. That's all. Like, you screaming from the rooftops that correlation isn't causation, as if it invalidates anything, is really silly. Because if correlation isn't causation and that automatically makes it invalid, then please tell me about epidemiology. Tell me about economics. Tell me about weather predictions. Tell me about social sciences. Tell me about behavioral psychology. Nobody knows exactly why certain market behaviors spike before recessions. Nobody knows. But we can look at the patterns because history repeats and echoes. It's like a fraternal twin. And nobody knows why trauma in childhood correlates with autoimmune diseases either. Like, there's no way to pinpoint that. Like, when you see a pattern enough times, you don't need to know the mechanism to respect the signal. That's what astrology is. It's a pattern recognition framework that's been refined over thousands of years across cultures. We track planetary cycles, we observe what consistently unfolds under those cycles, and we learn the energetic theme, and we flesh out the archetype. That's it. That's not woo, that's data. Just on a symbolic level instead of a numerical one. So what makes us different? And I want to go full nerd for just a second. I'm sorry, but I have to. This is the part where I say, if you turn this on because you like to watch me and you were trying to convince your significant other to sit and watch this with you because they don't believe astrology is real, this is where I say turn the volume up, okay? Quantum theory has shown us that particles can be entangled across space and time, right? Conscious observation can alter outcomes. It's just proven. The world isn't made of solid objects either. It's made of vibrating energy and interconnected fields. So if reality is literally built on entangled energy and the act of observation changes matter, tell me again how astrology, a system that tracks energy patterns over time, is unscientific. Riddle me that, please. We are living in a universe where non-local, acausal, energetic resonance is really fucking real. And that's not me talking. That's not my 8th house stellium talking. Well, it kind of is, but it's actually Einstein, it's Bohr, it's Heisenberg, it's Wheeler. The idea that everything is connected isn't spiritual bullshit. It's quantum reality. Astrology fits that paradigm perfectly, babe. It doesn't need a mechanical explanation because it reflects the symbolic structure of energy moving through time. We can also talk about epigenetics, as I noted earlier. For example, you can have a BRCA gene, like BRCA1. That gene is in need of being expressed in order to manifest this breast cancer, right? You get tested for it. And if you have it, but you don't have breast cancer, that means it's dormant. Because your lifestyle and your nervous system regulation and environment are going to affect whether that gene turns on or stays quiet. Like if you're going to sit on your ass and smoke a pack a day and knock back beer all day long and just not do anything with your life, then you may activate that gene. But if you're going to eat healthy and exercise and, leave the house and, have a bunch of friends and fulfill your dreams and have a nice social circle that makes you feel good about yourself and boosts your ego, it may not express. Keyword, may not, because epigenetics is correlation, not causation. Mic drop. Just kidding, I'm still going. It's the same with your birth chart, guys. It's the same with your birth chart. You might have Saturn in the 7th house, right? Just as an example. And that's not a curse. It's a signal. It's a signal that your relationships are a karmic classroom for you. But how that plays out is up to you. If you do the emotional work and learn boundaries and heal your attachment trauma, you can build something solid. You may build something solid. May. If you ignore it and avoid intimacy and repeat your childhood patterns, you may get chaos, loneliness. You may have developed a projection problem. You may have, right? Because astrology doesn't tell you what will happen. It tells you what you're carrying, what you're coded for, and what your soul came in with. It's a blueprint. It's not a prison. It's somatic, it's psychological, it's energetic, it's systemic. Modern trauma research, it shows us that people don't live in their thoughts, they live in their nervous systems. And that's where the patterns form. And that's where stories get stuck. And guess what? Astrology can map that. It can map it. Like, for example, if you have 6th house placements, that can show where your body can hold chronic stress, where it may hold chronic stress. If you have Pluto transits, like I had Pluto on my sun, transiting Pluto was on my sun, guys, 0 degrees Aquarius. That can trigger breakdowns and it could lead to breakthroughs. When Pluto was exact my sun, all of a sudden, I decided, you know what? Let me get on TikTok. Boom! So Pluto isn't as bad as everyone gives it the rep to be. Like, it is a bulldozer, but it can be a great bulldozer. Sometimes you need to change, okay? Also, one more example. Chiron in the 3rd house. That might show early emotional silencing. Like, it can manifest later on as maybe you have a throat issue or a fear of being seen. Similar with the 2nd, because the 2nd house rules the throat as well. It's Taurus. It could also be verbal abuse. And that could also lead to you not being able to speak up for yourself. That's it. It's not surface level shit. It's extremely structural. It's somatic. It's archetypal. It's psychological. And when you work with your chart consciously, that's when you stop being confused and you start being informed. And if you've never seen a birth chart before, now you're like, okay, so there's way more to my astrology than my sun sign. Correct. Ding, 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 ding. We have a winner. Wonderful. We're getting somewhere, I hope. At the end of the day, you don't call a language fake because it's made of symbols, right? Like, you don't call math fake because it doesn't have a heartbeat. Astrology's the same. It's not a belief system, it's a symbolic system. And when you learn how to read it, just like you learn how to read a CT scan or a stock market chart, it tells you so much more than you ever thought possible. It's crazy, actually. It's hilariously accurate, especially when a seasoned professional is reading it for you. So the idea that astrology can't be real makes people feel safe. And I think that's why people tend to say, oh my God, this is bullshit. Because if it's real, then that means that the universe is intelligent. It means that your life has patterns. And then maybe you're not just a random meat suit spiraling through space. That's terrifying for people who spent their whole lives invested in the idea that only what can be proven is valid. So with all of that being said, have I decalcified your pineal gland yet? Or are you still sleeping? If you are, I'm going to have to make another episode like this. And I don't know if I want to do that because people want to hear about their charts. So grow up and listen to this again, okay? In the next episode, we're going to open up some charts. We're going to look at some case studies. And I'm going to Virgo North Node up in this bitch until kingdom goddamn come. Period. And just one more thing before I conclude, baby cakes. If you found this episode intriguing and you would like to learn more about your astrological blueprint and landscape, I have multiple reports available for purchase on my website, ziggyastrology.com. That's ziggyastrology.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Ziggy Astrology. You can follow me on TikTok at Ziggy Astrology. My YouTube is at Ziggy Astro, unless you're listening on it right now. Hello. Bye, guys. I'll see you next Friday. Fuck your star sign.